All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today, we are going to be doing a watercolor painting, and I think we're going to use a full palette this time. Lately, I've been just doing some videos where we've been using kind of just 2 colors, maybe 3 colors, doing some experimental work with inks, but I'm thinking today I'm going to try to go with something vibrant. So, in front of me, I have a quarter sheet of Stonehenge aqua. I'm taking the large Hake brush and saturating this paper. It is 140 pound paper, cold press, 100% cotton. You can find this paper probably on Amazon, blick.com, and Jerry's Artorama. Definitely carry it. I'm sure some other sites like Cheap Joe's Art Supply and others carry it as well. Yeah, so once we get this nice and saturated, we'll take a look at the palette. We'll wet what needs to be done, put some fresh pigment. We'll see what needs to be worked with. And we might experiment with some stuff on top of that, but you know, we're just going to have fun and try to get nice and colorful, like lemon yellow colorful. So I'll get some of that out. Well, this is Cotman brand. I'll name the brands as we use them. Da Vinci brand, ultramarine blue. Let's get some sap green. Da Vinci brand for that as well. Let's see what else we need to get. We got some fresh alizarin. That's Cotman brand right there. The alizarin is a synthetic, so whenever you do alizarin, look for stuff that's the permanent one. The original alizarin used historically was not that light fast, though a lot of brands still do put that out for some reason. I'm not sure why. Let's get some fresh raw sienna. We probably just need some nice fresh burnt umber, and we should be good. While we're doing all this, the water is just soaking up into that paper. It's warping slightly, and then we'll stretch it out and be able to begin. So it's kind of a helpful process to wet it and then sit aside for a moment. If you're using that paper pulp, plant pulp paper, just kind of the cheaper brands, it would just start pilling and getting all messed up at this point. So that's why it's just really highly recommended to use 100% cotton. It doesn't have to be this brand. There's at least 10 makers on the market that have the 100% cotton. You know, the Ranson, the Arches, the one with the L, Languin, something like that. There's a whole bunch, so look into it and see what works for you. Winsor & Newton, of course, has cotton paper out there. We're going to use the Hake brush for this. Let's just get into the process and start painting. Raw sienna. Establish kind of a low sky horizon line. I have a picture on the side that I'm kind of looking at, but I think we're just going to play around I know that I do that a lot in these videos, and eventually we need to start sitting down and looking at, you know, pure pictures to work from, and putting pictures up on the Patreon for you guys to download and use and follow along with. But I think sometimes just the paint application is a good thing to follow along with, and not quite worry about the image. This is alizarin crimson right here. We're going super heavy with this pigment right off the bat. Maybe it's because I've been oil painting lately. Though even with the oils, I don't really go that heavy, so maybe it's just that it's 7:50 on a Sunday, on a work night. The weekend is pretty much over, which is a bummer. We got long work days ahead. All right, let's grab some ultramarine. Put in a wash. I don't really want the brush textures to show through in this wash, so bring it down. Go out. Flatten the paper out some, flatten the paper out. Bring it down below. Kind of just putting in a good guideline for what we're working with. Let's grab some stronger ultramarine. Okay, so far, raw sienna, alizarin, and ultramarine has been put down, wet and wet, using the large Hake brush. Let's mix the ultramarine with light red oxide. We haven't used this combination in a while, but it's common in this palette usage for me. Mixing those two together to get kind of a purple, a distant purple for land masses. I'll put it in here. It's very high, I guess chroma would be the word for it. It's very also tonally dark. Build up trees. No, we're going to wind up building, let's see, just kind of coming with a little idea of how we want the foreground landmass to be shaped. A little bit in there. Bring this landmass lower. Back here. Okay. So I'm going to tie this there. Remember, this is 11 by 15. It would fit underneath a 11 by 14 mat. The opening would come to about there. Our landmass recedes back. Let's grab some burnt sienna. Feed that into the foreground, wet and wet. You can also get on this right here. Bring down a little bit of reflection. I'm trying to choke off this spot right here so that the eye doesn't stop there. So the eye stops there, it doesn't go off the page. Let's see. We did put out lemon yellow, so let's play around with that. Kind of wipe off a space. So we can start getting some green elements, little tops of trees. Very colorful painting so far. You even add a little bit of yellow in the ground, kind of getting a cheerful painting going. We're going to bring up some foreground trees in a bit, or at least trees on these levels. Let's grab burnt umber and ultramarine. A darker color for kind of the shadow undersides of trees. Resisting the temptation to grab Payne's Gray. Now let's put some tree elements in that we were talking about. Let's figure out where we want to do that. Okay, so you can see we're going wet and wet right here. Kind of brings this landmass a little bit closer, giving that shape to this tree and the height to it. Bring a second tree structure. Do some low-lying trees back in this distance. We're just kind of using the texture of the hake. And wind up bringing tree trunks up front from this mass here. Let's feed in foliage that's going to wind up being built upon. It's closer, so I'm making it higher up in the air. It's going to be coming from here. Let it kind of encapsulate this whole side. I'm going wet and wet, so I have to be careful that I don't use too much water in this mix. I'm trying to get a darker mix to feed in here. This will be around the base of that tree. It'll wind up coming up in this region. And as the paper gets drier, I'm going to have to build up on this. I may, in fact, I'm gonna have to probably do a dry off and emphasize these, but we're still in that wet and wet phase, playing around, building up the undersides, the shadow sides of these trees. We're staying very colorful, very, I used to say impressionistic. We're just using the textured effect of the Hake brush. A little texture to this foreground. Build up some of the darks in here. Burnt umber and ultramarine. I should get some sap green in this to kind of keep it colorful, because this is where I'll undoubtedly turn it into that darker painting approach that I enjoy. Let's get some sap green, almost straight from the tube. We'll get some green cheerfulness into this. So far, all we've used has been the Hake brush. You build up the brush around the base of it. Ooh, we could even take a little bit of light red oxide, feed that in here, kind of change that color of that mass. Grab a little bit of lemon, raw sienna, feed that around there. We should grab the rigger and play around with that. It's always good to see how we could put in our finer lines with it, and how we can kind of just get those calligraphy strokes, and in that wet and wet phase, how they'll disperse, they'll recede visually into the image, and yeah, it's just a good application that really just can't be achieved by the Hake, at least with this kind of speed that we're going with. Because remember, well, right now it's 7:59, 1 minute away from 8 o'clock, 1 minute closer to work tomorrow. I do have an experiment that I did want to add to this one. I have a fountain pen that I had filled with some pigmented carbon ink. It's black ink. It's I also changed the fountain pen nib to a dip pen nib, and I wanted to see how that went over watercolor. And if we do a dry off, if we get to that point, we'll play around with it a little bit. Also, while I kind of do these squiggles and put these lines in, that would be a good time for me to say, hey, down below I have a link to my Patreon account. I would love for you to consider supporting me. That helps go towards art supplies and whatnot, and keeps this channel free with plenty of free content. Also, I do have some unique videos for Patreon members, but the Patreon amounts are like $2 and $5, so hopefully, you know, you consider checking that out. And if not, I totally understand. It's totally fine. Just liking and subscribing to this channel helps me out. And I think once we get to, when I say we, just like us, you know, the channel, just talking, gets to 1,000, we could do live videos. And I film these live on Twitch, so I love, you know, people coming in, interacting, asking questions, and I think it'd be fun and helpful. Anywho, on that note, yeah, so check that all out. Also have the Etsy account. Ooh, I grabbed a little bit of Payne's Gray there. Really didn't want to get that in there. Okay, so this is the burnt umber, sorry, and the ultramarine, building up the darks. In a few, we'll do a dry off. So once we get to that point, if you're watching, please, if you have headphones on or something like that, just, you know, take them off. Just, you know, protect your ears. It'll take about 10 seconds for the dry off. I always feel bad because, like I said, I film these live, and somebody might be watching but not commenting, or they might jump in exactly when I'm doing the dry off. And just imagine jumping into a painting demonstration and all it is a blow dryer. So that's that. But yeah, we stayed nice, and the paper stayed nice and wet throughout this. So let's do that dry off. I have found that I have to be aware of what's around when I do that dry off, just so I don't negatively affect those items. Anyway, if you have headphones on, watch your ears. Okay, so with that, in this channel we always talk about the drying shift, because we paint wet and wet. We have that copious amount of water that helps get the beautiful diffused looks, but as that water is removed through the drying process, it kind of lightens everything up. We have a shift in tonality. So we're going to go back, we're going to kind of emphasize. This also gives us the kind of concept of lost and found edges, where we have that softness, and then we have the contrast of the starkness there. But the best way to think about it is this. The analogy we always use on this channel, I always use, is the fact that if you have wet cement or a wet blacktop and it dries off, it looks dark when it's wet and it looks lighter as it dries. And that's what's happening with the water within this. So we're emphasizing our shadow areas. We could also emphasize some color, areas in the trees. Or we can use this stage to bring objects closer. Add another tree in front of that kind of background blue one. We'll take the Hake, sorry, the rigger, put that guy in there. We now have some depth in that spot So if you don't go exactly over what's there previously, and you trace new branches, it's an easy way just to create the illusion of having depth in that spot. In fact, we could probably add another one right here and give ourselves a little path between these two to look into. Oh, it's so hard not grabbing Payne's Gray. Horizontal strokes at this point, since we're dry brushing. With your water surface, you want to think of water as being a plane in a painting, and that plane is the horizontal lines help create that plane. Oh wow, thank you. So like I said, I live streamed this on Twitch, and Jelly came in and said it's very pretty. Thank you. This is just a really quick, fast and loose, wet and wet watercolor. We just did the dry off, so now it's kind of doing emphasizing and sharpening up some points, bringing some depth into place. And with this, just to reiterate, instead of exactly tracing over spots that we had tree-wise, if I create one that goes in other directions over that, we immediately start getting the sense of depth in that spot. So this seems closer, and that dry diffuse spot now seems further away. I might have to grab some more sap green on this one. And I'm painting this one kind of super fast and almost frantically, just because it's 8:03 Sunday night. Got work tomorrow morning. Got a long day tomorrow. And I think, you know, when I upload these videos onto YouTube, people prefer shorter videos. I know that I do. Let's see. Let's grab some sap green. So I just wet the brush a little bit. I'm just pulling it off. It's kind of a little gooey from the tube, so it doesn't. So I have to get a little bit of water in there. And I have Hammy alongside me, who's digging around. What's up, Hammy? See a face in the paint tray. Is it here? Is the face? It's always the worst with painting. Not with paint trays, but with like a painting itself. If somebody says, "Oh, I can see a cat in the painting," like from that point forward, I can never not see that cat there. I did have a friend in college who he had taken art history classes, and in order to memorize what year paintings were done and were in, he looked at the painting and tried to find the shape of the number or the letter from, you know, the year that it was painted in. The pink is right below the nose, and below the pink is the lips. Oh yeah, right in here. Kind of looks like a face, right here. Pink is right below the nose. Yeah, kind of like a face right there. Nose, eye, lips, right? Yeah. That's funny. Now, I'm always, like I said, driven to paint dark and moody, kind of in a tonalist fashion. but this one I was trying to keep more colorful. You know, just have variety for, you know, people to follow along with. By the way, on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, if you guys ever follow along with one of these paintings, you're more than welcome to follow along. And if anybody ever says, hey, I'd love to buy that from you, you have my express permission to sell anything you ever paint from one of my tutorials and copy from me. So that's just a general thing out there, because I want you guys to have money for art supplies, because they're expensive. I'm going to do a quick dry off. It's going to take about 10 seconds, but I'm going to use the blow dryer. So if you have earbuds or anything like that, just take them out. I don't want to blow your ears out. So 1, 2, 3. One kind of question to put out there to everybody: do blow dryers progressively put out less heat over the years? I think I've been using this one for over 2 years with working with painting and whatnot. It just doesn't seem to dry as fast as it used to. So if you know anything about hair dryers, drop a message, let me know. Anywho, this is what I really am excited to play around with. This is the experiment here. I have a Noodler's Boston Safety Pen. It's a fountain pen that could handle specific type of inks that fountain pens usually cannot. However, what I'm going to use is platinum carbon ink, which is a fountain pen ink. I think it could be used in most fountain pens. You just have to be careful with it drying it. Okay. It may get dusty in the intake. I'll have to take that apart and see if I can clean it out. Thank you, Jelly. I appreciate that. See, I didn't know that about blow dryers. Anyway, so this ink, it does have particles in it, which could clog a fountain pen feed, so you want to kind of keep it clean, fountain pens with it, or have specific fountain pens for it. But this pen is made for different types of ink that can clog other types of fountain pens. It's a safety pen in the fact that the cap acts like a bottle of ink cap, and the nib itself sits inside the ink. And I twist and I push up, and there's the nib. So the ink, the nib being that it's sitting inside the ink, it can't dry off and get gunky. It fills with an eyedropper. Ooh, I think I almost overfilled. I gotta be careful, I don't want to splatter all over the painting. Oh yeah, not recommended to fill ink over a painting. But what I did was I removed the nib that came with this pen, and I had an excess dip pen nib that was vintage gold. And it has a lot of flex to it, so it's kind of an experimental setup, putting the dip pen nib on here. I don't know if the Zebra G nibs would work on it, but regardless, you can get a lot of flex out of it. filled it up for the first time earlier. And it's like, there's the line, thin line. Oh, thicker line. It flexes pretty easily. Anywho, with this ink, since it's carbon, it will be light fast, and it is waterproof, so it's used in illustration and whatnot. So I wanted to put it in and play around on top and see how it drew. If you don't have a pen like this, if you don't have an ink like this, you can use the micron pens, the jelly rolls, etc. So this is just kind of me wanting to expand the potential darks that I could put into a watercolor painting. You know, draw little birds, etc. So it flows, it works perfectly over this. It'll dry with it. It seems like it's being absorbed into the paper quite well. It is acting in the fashion that black watercolor seems to act as with this, where it doesn't stay super dark. We'll have to see after it dries. You could also put gouache in this, but you probably have to clean it out every few days. But I've put this ink in pens, and it's stayed in it for a long time without drying, so I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this. And I think this might become a big fixture, a permanent fixture of my art table. On that note, I'm going to sign this. I'll put a mat over this so you guys can see what it looks like, and then I will sign off. Thank you guys for joining. Please consider liking, following, subscribing, all that other fun stuff. You know, of course, the YouTube page and other social media. Let's throw this on top and see what it looks like. And yeah, that ink I just used definitely soaks in and looks like a natural part of the painting. So I'm very happy with that. And there you go. There's the results. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day. Have a great week. Bye.